Hi. This is going to be a little bit of a different channel than the other channels. I have been sitting all day kind of like processing, trying to understand. Like I know that I wanted to make a channel today, and the messages that are coming through have just been tainted by what I am currently experiencing and processing. And for some reason, I was sitting listening to Jadina talk about future transformation and the way that her body has changed since she visited Hawaii, and I know that a lot of you also follow her. And I just like had this thought in my head as I was listening to her, where my brain was like, why don't you just talk about what you're going through as a channel instead? So I never do this because I know that this is a community that's not really about me, but what I'm processing right now is quite interesting, and it does feel very spiritual to me. So I'm literally just going to talk about what I'm processing, and if you do not resonate with this message, that is okay. This is a little bit different. Again, like I said, there are 1,000,001 other channels that you can listen to on this account that you may resonate with more. But that being said, let's go ahead and jump on in. First off, please tell me you love the shoes. I love them. So I'm wearing them in my house because I don't wear shoes like this where I live. I had to buy them because I had a vision of my higher self wearing them, so I bought them. And here we are in this moment right now. I have been dealing with a lot of, I want to say, residue coming up in my body recently. And so this is why listening to Jadina, this also triggered me, was because I feel like I've been going through such a weird, dramatic time in my life of residue showing up in my physical vessel from things that I have held on to throughout my life for such a long time, and things that back when I was not very conscious of my existence, I buried and buried and buried and buried all of these feelings inside of myself. And this past like 5 years, I've been doing like really deep internal healing work, which is how I've even come to the position where I am the person I am today, who does tarot readings and is able to read energy in such a dramatic, like diverse way and read the channeled energies, is because I have been doing such deep internal work to be able to understand just like all these different depths of myself, and also reflective of the energies of the community, right? Ooh, and this is definitely a hard message for me to create because I'm going to literally spill my guts on the floor for you. So bear with me while I try my very best to be very fucking vulnerable and not feel pathetic. So I've been dealing with this residue, right? And it's been like really interesting because I've had all these physical ailments coming up in my body within the past 5 years, and it seems almost as if each time that I get to a deeper section of my inner work, it's like I'm able to do such beautiful inner work. And I also do really deep energy work on myself, which I don't really talk about very often, but I had a friend teach me, and also I picked up a lot of things along the way from a bunch of different people who were certified in all these different types of healing and energy work, and I am very gifted in those realms, and so I picked it up quite naturally. And so I do energy work on my body quite often, and I'm able to, every time that I go into this space of doing energy work with myself, I'm able to truly release and dig into parts of my body that hold memory and store experiences that I have been through, where as I'm working through the energy, I have had a lot of memories surface as well that have been things that I have really had to process through, right? And each time that I do this, I recognize that I am able to step into a higher version of myself. And at the exact same time that I do that, the residue of whatever I have moved through, it literally feels like it bubbles to the top of my energy or my physical vessel from my energy body. And then I experience these physical ailments in turn of what I'm experiencing. Now, this is a very spiritual concept. You're allowed to judge however you want to, but yes. So this is just my experience with this, but I've been dealing with this in several different formats. There are different like over the years I've had different little things come up, and then they tend to repeat until I really dig into the issue. And right now I'm going through one of those, and this is something that is super interesting to me because it has been a part of my journey stepping into I want to say the priestess and the woman that I am. Okay, sorry, this is driving me crazy, but this also has so much to do with my sacral and my root chakra. Okay, because I went through a lot, and I don't talk about this because I don't talk about myself, but I have been through a lot of sexual trauma in my life, and a lot of that shut me off from the woman that I am and closed me down to experiencing the femininity and the divine feminine through myself and through this vessel that I chose in this lifetime. And I have been doing such a deep internal work to move through that and step back into the divine priestess and feminine that I am and that I am experiencing in this lifetime. And that's been so difficult because each time that I start to brace myself for the experiences that I have been through, to move through them, to find forgiveness. I swear I've been through all the stages of grief and healing with myself, and with anger for myself and anger for projections of myself. I have had these so many moments where I have once projected upon others, and I have come to so many realizations that every single projection I had upon anyone in any experience that I had that would have designated itself as trauma in the brain or in the human experience has, as I've done so much spiritual work with each individual, I want to say like each individual tissue, let's say they're all different like little muscle tissues, okay, so that's gonna make it make sense. Each time that I like massage through the tissue and get into the deep work of a tissue, I come to these deep realizations that it's all tied to myself, and all of the anger and resentment and fear and blame and also shame, and what's the other one, shame and I can't remember, but all these different emotions that I have felt that old me used to project them onto others. I used to think it was others' faults, and I used to live in that way so that I didn't have to blame myself, right? And it's not that I do blame myself, I don't actually anymore, right? But digging through everything, I've come to these places where whatever I did experience, I have found forgiveness for those moments, and even more than I have found forgiveness for others, I have found forgiveness for myself, for the experiences that I have been through and what that has catalysted inside of me and in my vessel and in my body. And this is something that I still am actively working through quite deeply, and it's something that's really hard for me to talk about and for me to move through, because it is something that is Freya so sensitive in my reality. And I am so deep in the internal beautiful work that I am so incredibly proud of myself for how far I have come in that journey. But it's definitely difficult, and so that's where we get to where I am today, where I am experiencing, and this is going to be so vulnerable, but I get I don't want to say consistent, but I want to say a cyclic pattern. I've been experiencing a cyclic pattern of bacterial infections, or UTIs, which is just funny, but it's so painful and not fun. And it's been happening for all the years that I've started doing spiritual work. And it's interesting because I've been having these really deep reflective moments where I look back and I never used to have this problem. I had so many other problems that were a lot worse and much more avoidant, and they were different. But since I started doing inner healing work, I have been experiencing, it literally feels like each time I face these memories within what I have been through, and I have to come to the conclusion that I hold resentment for myself in being in those experiences, and having to move that resentment out of my body. It shows up then when I step into a space of allowing love into my body that resentment feels like a fighting force against the love that I'm welcoming into my experience. And then I end up having these cyclic UTIs, and I've been getting them for, I want to say like 4 or 5 years now. And it's not like as crazy as some people's are in their experience. And I'm a huge believer that a lot of the physical things that we are experiencing are our body communicating to us that there is some kind of emotion being held in our system that is meant to be looked at and held and loved. Okay, and I'm no doctor. I still recommend seeing a doctor if you're at a certain point where you do need to seek medical advice. I'm no medical practitioner. I still see doctors, just so you know, but I really strongly do believe, and I come back to over and over, that there is opportunity for us to heal something that is being held in the energetic field that is causing something to be recurrent in our reality or show up in the first place, okay? So that's where I come back to the fact that this has been a cyclic experience for me. Like, I have had UTIs recurring consistently, not all the time, but consistently enough with pattern in my life, and I notice when they show up and where the pattern triggers. And that's been happening for like almost 5 years now. And so it is still something I'm not fully worked through, but it's interesting because I am more aware of what it is than I have been in my entire life. And it's also such a sensitive subject because I'm talking about something that my body, I don't know, for anyone that is still here and is resonating with this or has had experience with their physical vessel, I want to say fighting them, because that is what it feels like. And my physical vessel has every right to fight me in these experiences because I have been through traumatic sexual experiences. And so my body has learned to try and warn me of harm. And my body understands that that is a harmful space. And I am reteaching my body that that is not a harmful space, because I now am able to understand and only accept in experiences that are not harmful and that are safe, right? And I am having this eternal conversation with my body where I'm teaching my body to trust me, and that I can also trust my body and all the decisions that we are making moving forward in this space. Right? And so it's quite interesting because I sat down to do a message earlier today, and I set the camera up and everything, and like, this is the stuff that no one really sees when it comes to being a content creator. Like, I set the camera up and I went to meditate to turn or open my channel, right? I turned myself on to the universe and I opened my channel, and as I was opening, I just bursted into tears. And I held my body and I was just saying, I'm sorry, over and over and over again for the misunderstanding and the pain or resentment that my body feels from me pushing it too hard or putting it in positions that it didn't deserve in times that I didn't understand what was happening. And I hold no resentment for younger me, but there is still resentment being held in my body. And that is what's showing up as that residue, right? And this is, I don't even know who this is going to benefit, because I'm just like literally talking about this. Maybe it's just to benefit me because this is something that I just feel like especially women often go through, and it's looked over quite easily. And the base is so energetic for our bodies because we walk all over them so consistently, living in a masculine paradigm. And coming back into this journey of the divine feminine that I have been on, I have found that we live in a way that was built for men. And what I mean by that, let me be very clear, is the 24-hour cycle. The cycle of having testosterone in your body. And I was literally talking to a friend about this yesterday, of how they have that energy on a 24-hour cycle. And we as women only have it once in our cycle of 28 days, and we have 10 times less the amount of testosterone that a man has in their body on that day that we have the most, okay? And they taught me that. That is not a fact that I knew beforehand, but that is so absurdly wild. And all the ways that we push our bodies as women, especially in the world and the society that we currently live in, is honestly just kind of wild, that we are able to, I want to say, stretch our vessel and our concept of what our bodies are meant to do as women, when we are not listening to the natural rhythms of earth and the cycles that the body wants us to listen to. So that's where this is all quite interesting, because it comes back to this eternal, I want to say, stretching of the feminine, attempting to stretch the feminine to fit into a masculine scale. And I feel like vice versa, the masculine are also being stretched to fit in a feminine scale in a different way entirely. So this isn't to downplay either gender or to downplay the concept of divine masculinity or femininity. It is just speaking upon my own experience of this interesting cycle that I have been moving through, teaching myself to lean more into my own feminine ways. And it's tough. It's so tough to process and then to come back to what you are experiencing in your body and in your vessel, and be willing to allow that residue to rise so that you can clear it. And that is, of course, when we tend to move towards medical advice. And medical advice can be so beautiful, and it can help us when we really truly need it. But again, like, in order for those cycles to stop happening, we also need to be willing to look at the causes of those cycles and what is bridging that energetic body to still have something come to the surface over and over and over again. And that's where the real healing takes place, right? Is whether or not you can look at where that is coming from and that deeper energy. And also on top of that, my battery's dying, so I'm gonna have to change it in a second, but like, the fact that when I was sitting to channel earlier, I was crying because I don't know the answer. And I am also experiencing this beautiful dynamic realm where I get to channel messages for you guys, but sometimes I don't have all the answers, right? And that's part of being a human being, is that I don't have all the answers. I am a human experiencing the essence of God or source or the universe just as much as anyone else is. And in that moment, I wanted to give a channeled message, and I couldn't, because I felt so out of tune and out of touch with my own energy of feeling like I didn't have the answer for myself, when what I need the most right now is to hold my body through this time that I'm moving through, this this clearing, this beautiful clearing for an intimate new dynamic world for my body to step into, a new physical timeline. And I feel that for myself. I know exactly what's happening here, and yet I don't have the answers at the same time. And we are eternally existing in this dichotomy of knowing and understanding and having absolutely no knowledge and not knowing anything at all, right? And that is such a definition to the concept of humanity that we exist in at all times. And I think that this is just interesting to witness and perceive. And I never share with you guys my own thought process on myself and my own experiences, because I don't feel like this channel is really, I mean, dynamically it is about me and about you guys at the same time, but it's not about Freya, it's about the channel and the energy that's moving through for the collective, which often I am a part of that collective quite strongly, okay? So it is about all of us together, but also it is just interesting to show and share and showcase my own experience with something that I'm intimately moving through right now. And it is heavy, it is hard, and I'm consistently these past few days moving through these anxiety puddles. Like, I swear I'm literally swimming through anxiety, because I've dealt with anxiety really badly my whole life, and this is something that triggers that anxiety to come up in my system. And I'm also consistently these past few days having to literally practice or put myself into practice of coming back to the ways that I talk myself out of my anxiety puddles and remind myself of the goodness that is in my reality. And hold on, I'm gonna change the battery, okay? Okay. Let me get back up on my perch. My little throne, which is a stuffed mushroom, stuffed animal. So that's my throne. But as I was saying, like, I'm moving out and I'm having to find myself again and come back to, I've noticed it's, my friend said this the other day, and I really like the terminology that she used. So she was just talking about her life, and she was like, it's interesting, I'm going back to the basics of what like brought me to myself in the first place, or how I came home to myself in the first place. And I completely agree with that concept, because that's what it feels like I'm having to do in this time, where I feel like I'm like diving in and out of these moments of like, my old timelines are those anxiety timelines, and my new timelines are the ones that I have handcrafted with all of the strength of my character and my essence, where I've retaught and reprogrammed myself to experience life in a very divine and beautiful way, in a way that I'm fully in my body. And so I feel like I am going back to the basics. I'm going back to the original things that taught me how to shift my mindset within a single second. And so for me, that's like, for one, it's Abraham Hicks. Like, those are some of the first books that I read that really taught me that you can basically like level up your thoughts to take you to a more positive place. And if you want to move yourself away from the heavier energies, which is something that like I need to do right now so that I'm not sitting here consistently thinking about pain in my body. Again, like, Abraham Hicks talks about disease, and she breaks it apart, and she says this is the terminology, it's dis-ease. So it's literally being out of ease with your reality and your conception. And she teaches you this, there's this one book that she has, I think it's the emotions book, where she basically takes your emotions, and she takes you from the darkest, dirtiest emotions, and then she basically reads off the emotions going in a way that goes up. And so each thought that you have can tend to each emotion, and each one takes you a little bit more into a softer position, which eventually assists you in raising your vibration into a place that feels alive and beautiful. And I'll give you an example right now, because why the fuck not? I don't even know what this channel really is. It's mostly just me talking and showing you guys how my mental process works, I guess. My hair is, this is so vulnerable. I have to just get over myself. But for example, this morning I woke up and I was so stressed out because I was waiting for a test result back, and I was just like in my head, like thinking the worst case scenario, because that's something that I've really struggled with my entire life, is like worst case scenarios. Like, I just see them because I do have that sight. I see best case scenarios, and I also see worst case scenarios. I see them all at the same time. And often in my life, I would lean towards the worst case, because that's what I was taught when I was younger, was to make sure that you were always preparing for the worst case scenario, so you had everything figured out, without realizing that that was manifesting worst case scenarios in my reality, right? So this morning I wake up and I'm thinking, and I am realizing that I'm hurting myself by sitting in the energy of seeing a worst case scenario possible for myself. So I wake up and I have to remember like what a gift it is. So I take my thought patterns, and the way that I personally do this, I don't really like think like, oh, my test result's gonna be bad. That's not really like how my brain works. It's more like what if it is this? And so sometimes what's easiest for me is if, instead of saying what if it is this, and that's a worst case scenario, I say what if it is this, and it's a best case scenario, so that I'm equalizing the energy of both fields. And then when I'm thinking about what if it's the best case scenario, then I think about, oh, well, then this is going to be a little bit easier for me to process through this way. And it gives just enough equilibrium to craft a center point for me to be in energetically. And once I hit that center point, I can focus on things that pull me back into the physical reality that I am living in, that feels the most alive. Okay, so that means thinking things like what a gift it is to be alive this morning. Or when I wake up in the morning, the very first thing that I think to myself is, I am so blessed to have this bed, and I made my bed a fucking dream specifically so that I could wake up and be like, what a gift. I love fluffy things. I love feeling cuddled and held, and when I wake up in the morning, I hear the birds chirping outside of my window, and I hold my blankets and I'm like, oh, I am the luckiest person alive to wake up to this floof and this goodness and this happiness. And that one thought brings me back to my present reality, and it brings me into an energy of being able to think about the other things I'm lucky for. Like, I am lucky for the business or the work that I am going to be doing today, or I'm lucky to wake up and be able to think about getting a matcha and knowing that I have enough money in my account to get the matcha that I want, because I prayed for that and I worked so hard to get to that point where I can afford that, right? And have a matcha without even thinking about paying for a matcha. That's like something I literally used to script about in order to manifest into my reality, because there were days where I didn't have the money to get matchas, and those days make me so eternally grateful for today, right? So anyways, I go from there, and this morning, instead of being all full of anxiety and stress, I put everything away that could cause that, and I went and played music that I knew would make me happy, some kind of a playlist that literally evokes happy energy. And for me today, I played jazz blues because that music is just so bubbly and has so much soul to it. It just brings me to life. So I did that, and I made a matcha, and I did things that filled me with joy, and that literally brought me out of the energy of that anxiety puddle and brought me back into my physical vessel. And then I later in the day ended up falling back into the anxiety puddle, and then I had to bring myself back to it again. And I have just today literally had to do this like 3 different times to come back to myself. Okay, so for example, let's full circle it, and watching one of Jadina's videos, like, she is one of my favorite human beings. I love that girl, and she brings me so much joy, and she reminds me of things that also bring me joy in her videos, and also if I ever reach out to her, right? And so even just like knowing that if I put one of her videos on, I'm like, energy is contagious. Like, having positive energy in the room with me is going to transform my energy. So placing that on, and look, now here I am back doing what I want to be doing, what I was inspired to be doing and felt blocked by beforehand, right? By my own anxiety. But I was able to bring myself back around to now be here to talk to you guys and to push myself to talk about whatever is going through here, right? Like, even if it's not a divine channel, it's still information that brings us closer to understanding and gives us more intention and knowledge, right? And even if it's just for me, right, it is bringing me back to my highest self, because I'm clearing that blockage by even sitting here and talking and speaking and sharing my voice, even if it is something vulnerable or it is something that may not resonate with every single person, right? So whew, it's quite the interesting message that I have coming through. Because this is me. Interesting. But yeah, there was something else that I really wanted to touch on that I felt a minute ago. I don't remember. But anyways, I guess that's all. I'm not really going to go too much deeper. But I just wanted to talk about it because I feel like no one really talks about their physical ailments. And this page is built on beauty and light and goodness. And I also think that it's meant to be so authentic, in the sense of like me being able to come on here and share what I'm going through it is still beautiful, to be honest with you. Like, and I've taught myself that perspective to see it as beautiful, because if even watching and listening to this video back, like, the message of full circling back into the goodness and the highest timeline by choosing it in every single moment, like, that is fucking amazing. That's literally gorgeous in my eyes. And to be sharing also just feels so alive in this way, as well as all the other ways that I do share and share messages of the angels and not just myself, right? But yeah, I don't know. I am curious to hear your perspectives if you did sit through this or feel this in any way, shape, or form. If you feel at all like sharing in the comments, I would just absolutely love to hear your thoughts and perspectives. But there you have a little bit of me and what I'm processing and going through. I guess that was kind of like a life update, but not really. But yeah, always eternally moving through things, I swear. And usually I keep all the stuff I'm moving through to myself, but this has definitely been one of those cycles that has recurred so many times. It feels like something that I can't keep just talking to myself about, even though I could, but I don't want to. I want to be open and vulnerable and share. And I know I am not the only woman out there who experiences shit like this. So I know that that is something that can be related to. Anyways, I love you guys, and please do share your thoughts and opinions down in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next channel.